Yeah, that's kind of where I'm from. I'm just I'm a pet guy first and foremost. Never been a hunter, but I completely respect the world, and it's opened my eyes up to kind of a healthier way of breeding dogs and giving some life back into some breeds that maybe have lost some of that drive, like the English Bulldog.
Yeah, well, the English, without I know a fair bit about the various bulldog breeds, but I've never had English bulldogs. But I know people that have them here. They're not really. They're more of just like a house pet or an apartment pet to have, or a trendy apartment pet to have here in Australia these days. They're certainly not bred or used for any purpose other than to be, a companion animal or a pet.
Mm-hmm.
My main, even though I do, I treat my dogs well and treat them as pets as well, but ultimately they've got to be able to. They've got to be able to do the work that we expect from them in order to, maintain their position here. But the Americans have been able to demonstrate over the years that they can certainly breed very, very good dogs and get the best out of those dogs. Even when you consider the various breeds that are, I suppose, born in America, or started off in America, bred from dogs that were brought in from Europe and from the UK. The coonhounds are an excellent example. The Walker hounds, George Washington even had. They bred to be at the absolute pinnacle of what they were bred to do. And the same applies to dogs like American Pit Bull Terriers. I know a lot of people find them, a confronting breed, but when the Americans bred these dogs from the stock that came from England and Ireland back a couple of centuries ago, they bred some very, very fine dogs. Unfortunately, due to human nature, some of these things go astray, and the dogs fall into the hands of people that ought not have them. And you get all these issues that we've been faced with over the last 30 or 40 years. But pit bulls are probably one of the finest breeds of performance dog that I've ever seen.
What's interesting to me is some of these terrier breeds, to me, could add so much to any bloodline due to their health and sturdiness, and I look at the American Pit Bull Terrier, and I also look at the Jag Terrier and the Patterdale and the Feld and the Lakeland. All those kinds of dogs is just extremely sturdy. And I'm big into crosses for a purpose and breeding health back into certain breeds, and you can use a Jag or a Pit Bull and it breathes life into a lot of dogs. So to me it just proves how well their bloodline has been maintained.
Well, it does, but the genetics, to be a good dog breeder, and I'm not saying for 1 minute that I am a good dog breeder, but I've got a very good understanding of how genetics work, and line breeding, inbreeding, crossbreeding, and all that sort of stuff. They are, I suppose, they're subjects in science that that can't be covered effectively in a short telephone conversation like this.
Right.
They're very, very complicated, even to the people that are experts at it, and being able to demonstrate your ability as a breeder over a long period of time. You're only as good as what you produce, and that applies not just to dogs but to anything else. Now that we've got I suppose scientific ways of isolating DNA and all that sort of thing, and the relevant the genomes around the place, it's interesting. It's interesting to see. Um, when the truth does come out, what breeds were used where to make what. And I'm an avid student of genetics, and I love actually seeing how things work.
Mm-hmm.
But it is mucking around with genetics or playing around with genetics is like walking in a minefield. You really need to have your powder pretty dry and know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
There's plenty of opportunities for disasters if you don't.
Right.
Oh, look, I'm certainly not an expert in the bulldog game, and and I say this with the highest level of respect. The bulldogs that I've seen here in Australia haven't been an example of what I would regard as being, I suppose, outstanding physical specimens to do things that require any athletic ability. But I'll be critical of a lot of breeders. Any of these brachycephalic breeds where they breed the heads too short and all that sort of stuff, and dogs have trouble breathing in the summertime, that can't be any good for anyone. These are the sort of things that we need to address, or that people who breed these dogs need to address to make sure that they're not being, cruel to the breed. A dog that can't breathe under normal load is of little use to anyone. I'm an opinionated bastard, aren't I?
No, and well, this is the thing. I mean, I appreciate it, and I know working dog people are very steadfast in their belief, and I think, like I said, it really is a thing that a lot of people need to listen to as far as the dog world is concerned, and quit following trends in the market, like you say, and breed the best possible dog you can breed. And health to me is a huge issue because, like I said, bulldogs are my favorite dogs, and I just think that there's a lot of lessons to be learned, and even though I'm not a hunter, I completely support what you're doing and what many people here in the United States are doing, especially in places like where I live in the Midwest and the South, and they're doing yeoman's work as far as conservation, and people I think fail to realize dogs are a big part of that.
Of course they are. Dogs, there's still no instrument that's superior to the nose of a dog in conservation work. There's a lot of species that would never be found, both pest species and highly endangered species, if it wasn't for some people that were handy in being able to train dogs to do good nose work. A dog's nose is probably one of the least understood, I suppose, instruments in our toolbox that we have as conservationists. I'm an avid, and I never cease to be amazed at what dogs can do with just being able to put all these experts, shut all these experts up, and they say, "Oh no, there's no way of finding this thing," and all of a sudden the dude turns up with a dog, and they can make it happen, which is fantastic. But look, at the risk of sounding, I suppose, arrogant, the thing is with any dog breed in the world, no matter how healthy or fit your dog is, or how good its genetics are, a dog's life is very, very short compared to ours. So anything that we do to further shorten that is not a good thing. So as breeders, well, that's my humble opinion. As breeders, what we've got to do is try to do the best we can to breed the best possible dogs we can, taking into consideration their welfare and their quality of life. If you've got dogs that are blowing out their kneecaps and throwing their hips out and shoulders out and elbows out because some breeder has decided to use bad genetics or bad breeding techniques, it's not the dog's fault. It's the breeder's fault. So we need to have a long look at ourselves as dog people and as breeders and make sure that we're doing the right thing by these animals, because really, at the end of the day, we're the only people that are allowing them to be in existence. There's the only reason these dogs exist is because we allow it to happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
To a dog, we're everything in their world.
Yes.
A lot of people tend to forget that. That you go to work and go about your business, your family, that sort of stuff. That dog, all he's got is you. So that's how things work. We need to be sensitive to that.
Chili.
And you give that dog the opportunity to do those things that makes him a happy critter. Fortunately, we as humans, we make those decisions sometimes based on the wrong information, which is a bit of a shame. But there's plenty of hunters in the US that have got fantastic dogs, and there's plenty of fantastic dog people in the US that I'm privileged enough to be associated with. Especially with the hunting fraternity in the US is huge compared to here in Australia, and most of them have dogs. But it's funny to say, like here in various countries outside Europe, it's frowned upon sometimes to use dogs in the hunting context. But in certain places in Europe, it is illegal to go hunting without a dog. Mm-hmm. So, places like Germany, they won't let you go hunting unless you've got a dog.
Right.
And for animal welfare purposes, look, if you shoot and wound an animal, you're expected to go and find it.
Right.
And recover it and give it a humane death. Be it a duck or a goose or a deer or a rabbit or a hare or whatever. Mm-hmm. And they're very strict about how they do things over there. So you need to have a dog that's trained to be able to do that work. Otherwise, you're not allowed to go hunting. Mm-hmm. And there's some fantastic people in the US that are doing some great work now with blood tracking dogs that are recovering wounded deer all over America. A guy by the name of Jennery has written a number of books on it. And, he's an absolutely brilliant man, and he trains people to train dogs to find wounded animals and give them a humane death or recover game that would have otherwise been lost. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of good work being done with dogs out there. But I suppose you're a bulldog man in the companion animal caper, which you wouldn't be too interested in what I've got to say about hunting dogs.
No, actually, I am, because I think that, pet people like me have a lot to learn as far as I want to breed back. Not me particular, but I want the bulldog to be bred to do some of the things that it used to do, and quite bluntly, to bring back some gameness into the bulldog. And whether that's...
You've got to be very careful what you wish for.
I hear you. People that are actually, like yourself, I mean, it's an interesting world, and the layman and the pet people like myself need to hear about, the purpose that dogs have, and they're not just for show, and they're not just for pets.
Well, bulldogs the dogs you refer to back in the 1800s are nothing like the dogs that you're looking at today.
No.
And they would be very, very close to. You'd be far better off looking at a game-bred American pit bull than the bulldogs that you're looking at today.
Right, and for me, I what I don't like about the American pit bull terrier is that I do like about the English bulldog is just the bone and the muscle dense. That's the difference. I think the American Pit Bull Terrier is probably the best all-around utility dog out there, but I just like the muscle tone and the bigness of the English Bulldog. So
yeah, well, there's lots of people crossing them up and doing stuff out there at the moment that I suppose that might be, fortunately or unfortunately with dog people, everybody's out there. They're trying to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
You know, and that sometimes comes at the expense of breeding good dogs, and it also, comes at the expense of good animal welfare practices. Once we concern ourselves too much with the appearance of a dog, and we open it up to interpretation, we get these extremes in what I would refer to as being undesirable. And classic examples are the various brachycephalic breeds, many of the mastiff breeds. With the interpretation of what people think they should look like, as opposed to what they're supposed to be like, as far as the practical application is concerned. That creates its issues, and it creates a lot of arguments in the dog world with people. As I say, the people that bred the Yark Terrier bred it for a specific purpose, and there are a number of people within the canine community that are desperately maintaining that versatile terrier traits, or those versatile terrier traits, and thankfully they're not going to stop. And I think that you'll find that as soon as the practical applications are no longer relevant for these breeds, the breeds will die out, and they'll fall into the hands of the people who breed them to look like stuff, not too much, the Jack Russell Terrier is a pretty classic example of all of that. I can remember, the first Jack Russell Terrier I ever saw in Australia 30 years ago was a good, solid, hard dog, hard as a coffin nail. They'd work, all day. You'd drag foxes out of holes with them day in, day out without a problem. And you're very, very hard pressed to find one now that'll actually do that. Most of them are pets and in the hands of ladies with blue rinsed hairs and big asses.
Right? Yeah.
So that's one example, I suppose. But I suppose they've been made famous with a few of the TV sitcoms and things like that. And look, they're great little dogs, but you need to look fairly hard to find one that's doing what it's supposed to be able to do in the field. There's very few places left in the UK that have good working Jack Russells and what you call Patterdale Terriers. There's no such thing as a Patterdale Terrier, you know that, don't you?
Right, it's basically comes from the fell and
It's a fell terrier.
Yeah.
And it's a good marketing tool to call them. You never hear the guys over there that have got what we call Patterdale Terriers call them Patterdale Terriers. They just call them terriers. They call them the black ones. And they're pretty good little dogs. But they've got their very specific little breed that does the things that they want them to do. Unfortunately, they're falling into the hands of the commercial breeders, I suppose, worldwide, and a lot of them aren't coming up to scratch as far as what they're supposed to be able to do as well.
Have you had any experiences with the bull Arabs?
Yeah, I've seen a few bull Arabs.
I
got to admit, I did have a bit of a laugh. Probably 40 years ago. I was sitting around with an old hunting buddy of mine, and this guy was one of my mentors. And we were reading the local country paper where they sell hunting dogs, They advertised this thing called a bull Arab in Queensland. And I thought, what the hell sort of dog is this? And it all out just a crossed up old dog. If you can get 50 bull Arabs and line them all up, you're going to get 50 different dogs.
Right.
If you try to breed them true to type, it's not going to happen. the genetic pool is very deep. But it is quite funny when you get people trying to tell you that these things are true to type. They're not.
Right.
And look, people love them, and they call them bull Arabs, and all they got is just a mutt, you know. And they're lovable mutts. Some guys use them for hunting pigs with. Other guys use them for just sitting around the back of pickup trucks. But you know, it just, what do they say? Beauty's in the eyes of the beholder.
Right.
Right.